of political journals, but what I'd like to just try to explain very briefly is what the Bad Art Project is about. And the best thing I can do is to actually read from the first journal, which says very clearly, "We have chosen the name Bad Art. We mean this as a reaction against the established arts industry, and we're against capitalism's control of the arts. We want to fight for access to the arts for all. We want to protect art's freedom to be itself, whatever genre it falls into. But above all, we want to fight for a world where art, artists and all working people can truly flourish. And for us, that's genuine socialism." Many of the members of the Committee for a Workers' International, which fights for socialism, were involved in setting up this organisation. But right from the very beginning, we made it quite clear that it was not just going to be members of a particular political party, and that an inclusive approach from a variety of people was important. And that's actually reflected in the exhibition here tonight. It's effectively a third are from the Labour Party, a third are from the Socialist Party, and a third are independent people who are not members of any party at all, but are effectively all socialists. So that's the political background. There are a number of exhibitions taking place as well around the world at this time. There are certainly 10 different countries where Bad Art's having exhibitions, and I know there's at least 20 exhibitions taking place. And that's to try to link into the centenary of the Russian Revolution. Now, I know for socialists there would be nobody would be surprised for us to be supporting the Russian Revolution, but when you link that to the arts, people do tend to think that's something that we wouldn't probably be supporting, because clearly from the early 30s, the arts in the Soviet Union were used purely as a propaganda tool to support the bureaucracy, and that went on for 30 or 40 years. We don't stand in that tradition at all. Our tradition is more to take the position of Leon Trotsky, who made the position very, very clear, and I will just read this so I don't get it wrong. He says this: "While he acknowledges quite rightly, if you're going to be a socialist, you've got to plan the economy. It's got to be in public ownership, but it needs to be centrally planned with the workers having input, a democratic input. But from the point of view of culture, Trotsky's position was completely different. And he said, to develop intellectual creation, an anarchist regime of individual liberty should from the first be established. No authority, no dictation, not the least trace of orders from above. In fact, complete freedom for art." That is the position that Trotsky and the left opposition to Stalin took, and it's on those roots that the Bad Art Project is built. I would just point out to you that there are a couple of things around the gallery that might help if anybody's interested. We do have the most up-to-date copy of the Bad Art Journal, which goes into some depth on the history of the arts movement, both just before, during and after the Russian Revolution. So there are historical articles which I would ask if people would like to read, which can be bought from downstairs. The quote that I took from Trotsky was from a manifesto that he wrote in 1938, and again that's fully covered in this article. There's articles about Frida Kahlo, now that she's now in the news because of Teresa's jewelled, what was it you call, piece of jewellery that she had with Frida Kahlo on. So there's an article on Frida Kahlo, Isadora Duncan, and there's also up-to-date articles on the arts in America, some surprising developments taking place there, Socialist Artist Alliance being formed as a result of Trump. There's a number of developments of arts and culture in Northern Ireland to cross the religious divide, and there's articles on music for today. So I would strongly recommend, if anybody's got any interest in the history, please have a look at one of the journals. And also downstairs we do have, and it's only just arrived in the last few weeks, they are Russian posters, literally have just come to us from St. Petersburg, and they are downstairs for you to peruse through or to buy if you want individual ones. And it's very interesting that if you look through them chronologically, you can see the actual changes from the inspiration, if you like, to the artists of the revolution in 1917 through to the early 20s, and then to see how, unfortunately, the artists became part of the state machine in glorifying Joe Stalin and the Soviet regime. But there are those things downstairs for people to look at. I'd also, just very quickly, advertise while I'm in this mode, that there is an exhibition booklet, a limited copy that we've put together just for the show for this month, and it is all the 10 artists that are featured have written something like 300 or 400 words about themselves or something of interest to them, and they're examples of their work within the booklet. So that, again, that's something that might fill out the show that you see today. We are clearly very cramped in what we've only got the small room, so we've had to try to extend what we've got down the staircase, and as I say, we've worked downstairs as well. Now, I don't like to pick out individuals, but I hope you'll bear with me, because there are 2 individuals in this show that I would like to speak about. The first one is Alan Hardman, who's standing and hiding over in the corner. Now, Alan he was brought up in Barnsley in a mining family. He's a printer by trade, and in the early 70s started doing political cartoons. They were regularly in the militant newspaper, and then they are now still being produced in the socialist newspaper. Alan's work has featured in a number of books. His posters and his work have been distributed internationally. Certainly during the miners' strike in Yorkshire, a number of his posters would be found on the picket lines and at the lodges. A very, very well-known political cartoonist in the Labour movement. For the first time ever, I'm pleased to say, he's actually displaying the original drawings, warts and all, for us to see, from which these posters have been produced. And there are a number of booklets downstairs, as I say, with Alan's posters in, should you want to look through them. But these are, for the first time, the original drawings. And what I'm really pleased to say is that while we were discussing the publicity towards this show, that the People's History Museum in Salford have actually suggested and are looking to letting Alan have a full one-man show, because he's got 40 years chronology of the British and international labour movement, and hopefully that is something that will be happening in the near future. I'm glad you had a break. The other person who I'd like to draw attention to, unfortunately she can't be here today, she's not very well, is Jean Stockdale, whose work is on Over the Fireplace, and seems very peculiar, childlike and innocent work to be in a revolutionary Marxist art exhibition, as what the local press said. So here is the work of Jean Stockdale. Now, I just want to say briefly, I've known Jean for nearly 50 years, and she's been at the absolute cutting edge of what you would call outsider art or naive art in Britain and internationally. If I can just refer here, she's had exhibitions at the Barbican, the Guildhall, the Mall Galleries, the Royal Festival Hall. She's had exhibitions in 4 French cities, and many exhibitions in London. Her work is in many private collections in France, Belgium, Germany, in California, in Canada, and a lot of her paintings are actually being used by the post office. W.H. Smith has designs for jigsaws, and Oxfam. It also says on here, I'm a bit shy to read it out, she's also done something for tarmac construction. I'm not quite sure how that fits in with her love of nature, but anyway, that's Jean's work. Unfortunately, she, as I say, can't be here today. It's such a long way to travel. But what I would say is that Jean has done a number of works purely for this show. Even though she is in her mid-80s, she's been inspired by what we've been attempting to do There are a number of works here for you to see. We've put some of the notes that she's helped us send up so we can get a more of a depth, hopefully out of looking at the pieces of work. But what I would say for anybody who's financially minded, if not just interested in the arts, the prices that Jean has put her work at is absolutely a fraction of what she is selling her work for. And if you want to look on the internet under Jean Stockdale in the auction houses and the work that's being sold, they are still going for thousands and thousands of pounds. And it's to her credit that Jean has said that she wants them to be here, and she would like to negotiate with anybody that she could about a particular price. But that's what it's there. And finally, although I did promise that I wouldn't say this, I do have to thank Karina. Karina Wardle, who is the owner of this gallery. She's been absolutely fantastic in the build-up to this show. She's not a socialist. She would never say that that was the case. But to her credit, she's been generous and helpful. And what is particularly of importance to us, and we've decided that we need to display this, Karina is not taking a single penny from any of the works or donations that are being made over the next 4 weeks. It's really, in a sense, a labour of love that she's allowed us to have this exhibition, and I think that's a fantastic generosity of Karina. And I think that's about it. I mean, I'm just very, very pleased that so many people have turned up. It has been a long and difficult few months because I have been aware that there have been these exhibitions about the Russian Revolution at the Royal Academy. I noticed, if anybody watched television at the beginning of this week, there was a programme on Tunes for Tyrants, which is clearly linking anything to do with the arts with socialism, means communism, means the same as fascism, as Hitler, that those are the links that are being drawn. So for me, when I tried to curate the show, I wanted to show that although as socialists we work together, we strike together collectively, we work as one, but when it comes to creative work, we follow wherever that takes us as individuals, whatever genre we use, and I've hoped to best as possible to show that diversity in the show. But I just want to say once again, thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy what you see for the rest of the evening.